Hello and welcome, Success Grid Nation, to this episode of the Success Grid podcast with your host, Hussein Talib. In this episode, I have an amazing guest with me, Chris Donaldson. On his return from South America, Chris joined the family furniture shop in Belfast, which over the years he expanded into London and Dublin. He was a UK Master Franchisor for a fitness company, developed a health fitness franchise and a mobile app company in Dubai, where he lived for 8 years with his family on a 47-foot yacht. The journey still impacts his life to this day, where he continues to go the wrong way wherever he can. I am so delighted to have Chris with me on this one. Chris, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome to have you here, Chris. So first of all, because you had multiple experiences, you met a lot of people, you had businesses in different aspects in fitness and health, and you even worked in developed in mobile apps. So I want your perspective or your definition, let's say, on what is success to you after all these years and after all these experiences, and what do you see other people around you have certain misconceptions around success.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've been in many businesses, which seem to be quite diverse, from selling furniture to property development to mobile apps to running fitness franchise. And now I'm an author. I published my best-selling book on Amazon. So there's quite a few different businesses I've been involved with, but there's a common denominator with them all, and it basically been sales and marketing throughout them all. Any business, no matter what business you do, you sort of, if you don't sell it and don't market it the right way, you're gonna fail.
Definitely. So now, because you worked in different aspects of things, different areas, like you mentioned, when we talk about health and fitness, is different from having a mobile app, is different from what you work with your family furniture shop. So different things, different areas. What have you learned through your career that you know now that in sales and marketing is the most important thing for anyone who's starting or already started to focus on?
Yeah, if you don't do the marketing right, if you don't present yourself right, people like to do business with people they can trust and people that they like. And so my first job was in the family business, as you say, which was the retail furniture. It was a family shop in Belfast, which was quite old fashioned. But when I took it over, I opened a new store in Dublin and another store in London, because that's where most of the people lived. Belfast is quite small. But where no matter where you are, whatever business you're in, you're selling yourself, selling your business. People have to. I think first thing they have to do is like you. You know, if somebody doesn't like you personally, they won't buy off you, no matter what price your product is or what sort of product it is. Nobody wants to give money to somebody that they don't trust or they don't like. You know.
Mm, Definitely, because the relationships in business is the most important thing. You have to keep your customers closer than the competition, because
That's right.
nowadays there is a lot of competition in everything, not almost in everything for sure. So, from your experience, how would you describe the best way to attract a customer in a way that you are differentiated from the competition? Like when you started your careers in different things, how did you see yourself different from other businesses?
I think one of the first things you have to do is look at your customer and see what sort of person he is, because you can be a bit two-faced about it. Really, you don't have to. You have to sell yourself, but you know, if somebody's coming in and they're a bank manager, you will treat them differently than somebody's coming in who's a rock star or something else. You know, you have to decide what sort of image you're going to give over yourself. And sell yourself to suit, which is, it sounds a little bit two-faced, but you have to fit in. The customer is the most important person, so you have to fit in with them and place yourself in a sort of, so he'll look at you and see the sort of person you want that he likes to do business with.
Mm,
Um, you know, so it's a matter of, I remember one of our salesmen, an old-fashioned guy in the furniture shop, he used to say he would decide what price and what price to sell the goods at whenever he looked at the person's shoes. Because if somebody's got very clean shoes and tidy shoes, they're going to be very different than somebody comes in with a couple of pair of trainers, runners on. You know, they're going to be two different types of characters. So you can set yourself to decide which character they are.
Yeah, definitely. So now, throughout your business and career, you traveled, of course, around the world. Did you see any differences, let's say, building businesses in different places, or do you think the same things apply everywhere? Okay. And also, in that regard, throughout your traveling, what is the most important thing that you have learned throughout this journey from going from one place to other?
Well, just to sort of fill in that bit, when I was 21, I decided to ride from Belfast to Australia on a motorbike. And I left by October 1979. And I didn't get very far because when I got to London, stopped for a few days to get my visas and stuff in Asia. And then the Ayatollah mainly decided to have a revolution in Iran and took over the American embassy and so on. Which is sort of ancient history, but not much has changed since then. But I meant I couldn't ride to Australia. I ended up going really to the Middle East, around Israel, Syria, Jordan, down through Egypt, into right across down Africa, down to South Africa. Then I got a job in a yacht race back to Europe, flew over to the States, went from Canada down to South America. So it's quite an influential journey because, as you say, I met lots of different people, different cultures, um, different religions, different everythings from Egypt to South Africa, as I say, to Americans and South Americans. Everybody's slightly different. But one thing I found out when I was traveling, that everybody generally is, they're good people, you know, until there's a lot of bad people, but obviously as well. But it's surprisingly how good people are, nice to meet, and how friendly they will be if they're in their country. Maybe realize that generally people, they want the best. They want to give off the best impression, and you can get on with an American as well as you can an Iranian or somebody from Africa to somewhere from Belfast, sort of thing. So it did teach me a lot of about people. And then, well, that was 40 years ago. About 3 or 4 years ago, I decided to categorize. I had all my journals, and I'd actually started writing a book then, but I ran out of steam with it, and then started again 3 years ago and rewrote my manuscripts, which is quite fascinating because I was able to read the journey that I made when I wrote about it when I was 21. Now at 60 odd years old, I was able to read what it was like as a young man and put it on paper. So as I said, I'm not an author, which would surprise my English teachers at school. I was never very good at English or written words, so it's quite amazing to be able to achieve what I've achieved by writing the book. It's been another journey as well. It's another skill, writing and self-publishing. It's with good with websites, with the internet and Amazon, I'm able to sell a book anywhere in the world. Which from when I changed when I started writing was a piece of paper with just handwriting, whereas now it's on the computer. You can cut and paste and copy and whatever. So it's a whole new generation of writers been able to sell now, you know.
So now your book, why did you call it throughout these experiences? What did you choose to call it going the wrong way?
Well, basically because I left to go to Australia and I ended up in Argentina, so you can't get much further away than that. But actually, they means a couple of different things. Obviously that, but also I found it by traveling without a destination, because my destination was blocked off. I ended up just traveling for the sake of traveling, which is quite a unique experience because 99.9% of the time you go traveling, you're going somewhere. The whole point of the journey is to get to the destination. Whereas my journey was really just traveling for the sake of traveling. When I couldn't go to Australia, I just was just discovering the world as I went along. So it was a very different experience. And I was able to use the things I learned from that experience in business to develop my journey through in business as well, to develop from one product to one type of industry to another. Um, I've always enjoyed learning about things and learning about different different trades as such, and especially when going into mobile apps, which is obviously new. It was about 10 years ago, just when apps were coming out. It was happened to be in the right place at the right time. So I was able to build apps for Mercedes, for Aston Martin, for Honda, for some quite high up companies and quite leaders in their field. So I learned a lot from that too.
Mm. That's amazing. Like you came up with the place or the time, let's say, that was good, that was application were going, we were having a boom for themselves. And you work with the, I would say, like the companies you mentioned, these are big names, which is a good thing. I'm sure it is. So now, throughout all of this, did you have something or something you wanted to do, but you regret not doing? So did you want to do something, but you didn't do and you regret it now?
I haven't too many regrets. I've done the wrong things lots of times, but I think a regret is usually if you haven't done something, generally, unless you've done something really bad. But I've always enjoyed it. Better to try something than not to try it, because if you don't try it, you'll never learn.
Mm,
If you make a mistake, you learn from, as long as you learn from that mistake. But if you don't decide not to do something, you're never going to learn from the experience because you haven't done it, you know.
definitely.
Uh,
You have
Mobile apps were,
to put yourself in that place.
yeah, mobile
Definitely.
apps are very much a learning experience because everybody was learning as they went along. Where you produce an app for somebody in January, and by March it was out of date very often, you know, because the engineering, the software was developing at such pace. Um, Everybody thought in those days that apps were going to be take over from websites, but what happened was really websites made their own mobile websites and stopped that happening. Apps then became more to do something for Uber or for whatever, different companies like that, that you were functioning as a useful tool to sell something or to make something or to drive somewhere. But we were able to get in at the start when mobile apps were coming in, Apple were coming in. When we started, everybody was using Blackberries, especially in the Middle East. They love the Blackberries. It was amazing how quickly, and that's another lesson for a company that the company BlackBerry had the majority of the market one year, and by 2 years later they were out of business. So it's a very fast flowing industry.
Yeah, definitely. The BlackBerry market is really strange how it took over, and the second day is why it was wiped out completely.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
How you can go from the top of the tree to the bottom very quickly, you know.
definitely. Like they are buried. Like they are not mentioned at all.
You know,
Yeah. So throughout all these things that you have done and traveling you have done and the experience you have experienced, did you ever thought of failure? Like, did you think to yourself, for example, before you start the app, or did you uh, do anything that, or did you think that this thing would fail, or did you have not thought about failure at all in your mind?
well, there's always a concept of failure there, but if you're a salesman or a marketing man, or I mean, basically it's marketing guys, or you're a real salesman. Salesmen are always very optimistic. You always, every time you talk to a new customer, you imagine you're going to do business with them. Otherwise, you would not be in the job. You know, you're always starting with nothing. If you meet somebody, you shake their hand and you have to start selling yourself and your company. If you
Mm,
don't do it right, they'll walk away. You've got to try and find out what they want and see if you can supply them with what they want to make them happy with the product. So it's a going the wrong way is a sort of has been my motto, I suppose, in a lot of things, because the sensible way of going into business is learning how to do something and staying at it for 40 years. That's what most people do. Whereas I was sort of going from when I saw one job, as I say, when I saw the apps got into the apps at the right time, when I saw that there's too many people making apps for what they were doing, what they were succeeding with, I was able to change ship, jump ship again. Got into video and marketing, video YouTube marketing then, which was a good decision to make. YouTube still, that was before TikTok, before video really became that strong, but I knew that was going to be the next thing. So it's having a sort of radio area to try and spot the next best thing coming
Mm.
for the
Yeah.
problem.
So, throughout all of this, and we talked here about failure. Did you have ever received bad advice, or did you have ever received an advice that you regret actually applying to what you are doing?
Well, hindsight's always a great thing. You can always find out what you should have been doing after, after you should have done it, because the success or failure of the product or the times shows you. So you can't get too hung up on that, I think. I suppose the main thing is if you get depressed about it is if you were going to do something and then didn't do it, and then it went on to greater things. I always remember seeing a movie lately about the Beatles, and that there was a drummer was, I can't remember the guy's name, I think it was Best or something like that. But he was the drummer for the Beatles, and then he decided to jump ship, and he really thought this band isn't going anywhere, and he left, and he got replaced by Ringo Starr. And obviously, as soon as Ringo started, the world went crazy for the Beatles. So it'd be terrible to think I was the guy who worked with that band, and then I gave it up just before they got famous. But if you don't try new things and you don't take risks, you don't get anywhere in life.
Mhm. Yeah, so from all of your experiences, you would tell entrepreneurs and business owners just to dive, as they would say, dip your toes in the water as fast as you can after you have the idea, right? Because this is how you know if it's going to work or not, and you can move on to the next idea, right?
Yeah, I mean, you never know. You gotta, if you don't try it, you won't know. But if somebody's not doing anything, there's two reasons why the product's open to the market. One is that nobody's thought of it yet, and you were the first person to get into it, and you're the first person to drive it. Or it could be that it's just a bad idea and nobody wants it. So you got to decide pretty quick which one it is.
Mm, definitely. So can you walk us through your own life now, as you've been into all of these experiences, and I think that you've been diagnosed with Parkinson's, right? So
That's right. Yeah.
how does that work for you now? How do you feel about life now? How do you feel about what you have accomplished so far, and what are you looking for ahead for the future?
Well, there's always things happening. I mean, after I wrote my book going the wrong way, I realized that I hadn't actually thought about it, but I realized that that was part of my personality, was doing things in a different way, and sometimes it's the harder way to do it, or a harder road to take. But very often, if you're going the way that the masses aren't, you're making your own destination, making your own journey. Not only will you have a better time, but it'll be more extreme. You take the motorway all the time. If you want to go to Australia, you can take a British Airways flight and you're there in 24 hours. But you've got to the destination, you haven't had a journey. But by taking the harder road, you get it'd be more of a challenge to you, but you get more from it at the end of the day. Um, when I wrote the book a couple of years ago, one of my friends said to me, "You never actually got to Australia 40 years ago. Why not have another go?" So the two of us set off 2 years ago, and we traveled in stages. Again, it's the problem that I find was that I didn't have the time to do something like that, but by doing it in 2 weeks on and 2 months off, leaving the bike as we went along, we were able to get around that problem, that issue, that I could spend a couple of years traveling in stages. So I think it's important if you get a problem with something in business. Being in business it's really a chain of problems you're going to have if you're an entrepreneur. You just got to um, face every problem as it comes along, and it's up to you. If you're the CEO of your company, it's up to you to get over it, to get around it or over it or past it. Or if it's something that's just definitely going to stop the company, change direction, and go a different way.
So speaking of different ways, do you think, for example, if someone starts something and if it doesn't work in terms of money bringing profits, if you would say like a time span on it, like a 6 months, a year, how much patience should an entrepreneur have to go from idea to idea?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, it depends very much on the person and how his finances work out and how many, well, just timing and luck. You know, I mean, you can have a great product, a great idea, but your timing might be wrong. You know, I mean, cheap airline flights, you get Ryanair and EasyJet now, big, huge companies. They hit the cheap airline market at the right time. But there's a company called, what was it called? Did it about 20 years ago before him. Oh God, come back to me whenever we get off the air. Freddie Laker, that's what it was. And he started a low cost airline to the States from the UK 10 years before anybody else did, and it failed because he was there, he had the right product at the wrong time.
Mm.
Whatever the reason, it didn't take off the way it should have. Whereas 10 years later, the other guys, Ryanair, came up with the same idea, and it was a huge success. So so much luck involved, as well as being in the right place at the right time. And as many businesses are like that, I can think of. Some stage that they've had the right product, they've either been too late or too early with it. So you have to get the right timing, and then you have to do it right as well, obviously. But so many variations of the product. We got into mobile apps at the right time. Very often it's about getting out at the right time as well. And for instance, the property market, you can buy at the right time, but if you don't sell your product at the right market at the right time, you'll fail as well. So it's being an entrepreneur is not an easy life.
Yeah, I guess you have to put the work in and take actions, because
Yeah,
speaking of being a little bit lucky or finding this certain opportunity, you have to work and do the work to meet that opportunity, or the timing would be right. So if we are just sitting down and doing things, not developing apps, not developing business, not helping other people, not servicing other people, not coming up with ideas and as quickly as we can implement them, we would not, let's say, find the right timing with between our business and the time that could be right for the business to actually uh, uh, grow basically and
yeah.
kicks off. So that's very important. Yeah. So Chris, what would you say as a final takeaway from all of your experiences, you traveling and your own story, for the people who are hearing this episode?
Well, you need to know what you're doing, but more than that, you need to have patience and understanding to drive your idea through. So say if you don't have the patience, you don't have the motivation to make your product work or to develop the company that you're producing, you'll never get anywhere. But the only thing you could do is, very much, if you don't try it, you don't know if you're going to succeed or not. So if you've got a good idea, just get off your ass and do it, basically.
Yeah, yeah, definitely I agree with you. That way we'll know if it's gonna work or not, or do you wanna give it some time or not give it some time. Let your heart decide. I don't know, maybe not your mind. It depends on each individual, as we talked about here, but you have to give it as much as you can of work and
Yeah,
action and consistency and serving other people and providing them with great value. And eventually it comes down to relationships with the people and the customers. That's very important.
yeah. And you've got to have passion for your product as well, because that's the best way to people see that you're passionate about your product, they'll want to buy into that passion as well.
Yeah, definitely, of course. So, Chris, where can people learn more about you, your story, and what you do, and see your book and get your book, Going the Wrong Way?
Well, you can buy it from the company that we all like to hate, Amazon, company that's taking over the world. But it is an incredible company because you can buy, I wrote the book in Belfast in Ireland, but you can buy it in America is one of my biggest markets. It's my website's called chrisdonaldson.world, and the book's called Going the Wrong Way. If you type in Going the Wrong Way, you can buy an audiobook, paperback, hardback, or online on Amazon. It's probably the best way to get it.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Chris, for joining me for this episode of the Success Secret podcast. You have an amazing story, a long story, actually. It I'm sure there are more tons of details into that of your travels and your experiences and businesses. So I'm honored to have you here on this episode of the podcast. Thank you. Provide us with the great insights and knowledge for people who are hearing this episode. Thank you.
A pleasure. Thank you again.